Hello and welcome to our third video. Is it third? Yes, third video. And in this video we're going to be talking about eyewitness testimony.
Yes, which is the third topic of memory, which is the first topic of 3 in Unit 1 of 2, or technically, right.
Just carry on.
Right, we're going to kick off with misleading the witness, which is the first little part of eyewitness testimony. There are roughly 4 little experiments that you can talk about, and they're all done by Loftus, which is good. The first one is the film of a car accident, and the key word, as you can see, is the barn. This is where 150 participants were shown a film of a car accident, and they were divided into 2 groups and asked 10 questions. The first group were given questions consistent with the film, like how fast was the car going when it passed the stop sign, and the second group were given the same questions with the exception of one: how fast was the car going when it passed the barn? This was misleading as there was no barn. The last question was no. After 1 week, the participants were given another 10 questions, and the last question was, did you see a barn? Only 2.7% or 3% of the first group gave an incorrect answer, yes, whereas 17.3% of the second group answered yes. Loftus concluded that for these people, the non-existent barn had been put into their memory because of misleading information.
Dun, dun, dun.
However, it's really important to recognise that still over 80% didn't conform to that. That's like a little evaluation. The second experiment is Loftus and the purse theft, red or brown. Participants were shown the theft of a large red purse, and then they read a professor's account of the theft, which contained several errors, like the purse was brown. But all the participants pretty much recalled the purse as being red, suggesting that information which is obvious and less central is less subject to distortion. The next one is Loftus, another car accident. She does love her car accidents. And this is about precise wording. This is where they were shown a film of a car accident and asked what speed were the vehicles travelling when they, and then a word was inserted. Contacted, 32 miles an hour. Hit, 34. Bumped, 38. Collided, 39.
Smashed,
41. And they're miles an hour. That's what the people said when they changed the word. I advise you remember a couple of them. Probably hit. No, I like bumped, which is 38 miles an hour. And smashed.
And contacted, 32 miles an hour.
And smashed, 41 miles an hour. A week later, the participants were asked whether they had seen any broken glass. Those in the smashed group, which is the biggest with 41 miles an hour, consistently were more likely to answer yes, wrongly, because they're plebs. And the last one for misleading the witness is Loftus and the car accident, another one. The or a broken headlight. They were shown a film of the car accident and asked, did you see a broken headlight or the broken headlight? Participants with the question were twice as likely to report that they had. Right. The next little topic-y thing is the influence of anxiety. First one, I do stress this is a theory and this is not a study. This is research. So if you're asked, explain one study into the influence of anxiety, you can't put this. But this is the Yerkes-Dodson law, which is the little loop thing on a graph, which shows that an increase in arousal improves performance, but only up to a point known as the optimum, and then it tends to decline in as far as eyewitness testimony due to anxiety. So, yeah. So one example of an experiment for this is Loftus and Bums, please, which showed a film of a crime and a boy being shot in the face. It was extremely violent, and one group saw that and the other group saw a more non-violent version of the film, and they recalled far more detail. So it seems that the shock of the event disrupted the storage of other details in the extremely violent one. That's a lab experiment. Now the next one is a field experiment, which is why field is in blue, because it's pretty much the only field experiment in this whole thing. This is where they conducted a study in a health clinic using inoculations. There was a nurse who gave the injection and a researcher who interviewed them, and they were both with the participant for the same amount of time. And a week later, though, the participants were able to identify the nurse and the researcher. No, they were able to identify the nurse more than they could identify the researcher.
Yes.
Probably because of anxiety, because she's the one holding the needle. Right, that is all. Next,
Weapon focus.
Weapon focus, which is a rather big little subsection, but there we are. So weapon focus is just how you sort of focus on the weapon. That was helpful, wasn't it? The first one is, what is it?
Loftus's experiment. These are all Loftus's experiments.
Again, busy lady.
Yes. This is the one with the restaurant. Was it a check or a gun?
So they were showed participants a slides of a customer in a restaurant. In one, they were holding a gun, in the other, they were holding a checkbook, and they were less likely to identify the customer who was holding the gun, probably because, you know, they had been focusing on the gun, and so they're more likely to identify the person with the checkbook, which is all very lovely. Right, the next experiment
is the waiting room one, whether the guy had a pen or a knife.
So, participants were ordered to wait in a room when they arrived for the experiment, and during this they either overheard a low-key discussion about equipment failure, then a person emerged holding a pen with grease on his hands, or a heated exchange in the lab, sound of breaking glass, crashing chairs, and then a man emerged with a paper knife covered in blood. Participants were then given 50 photos and asked to identify the man. The participants in the pen group were 49% accurate, but the knife group 33% accurate, showing again weapon focus. Now, the last one, which I think is a pretty awesome one, is Loftus's gaze study, where the gaze is monitored of the participants when they were shown a film of a crime, and it showed that their focus or their gaze was on the gun, and they were less able to identify the robber and record fewer details of the crime than the participants who saw the film minus the gun, which again shows that they've been looking at the weapon, because they're ninjas like that. Right, next bit, I know this is going on, but bear with it. The next bit is the influence of age, separated into 3 little subsections. Start with young children. The first bit is suggestibility, whether showing that they're more sensitive to leading questions. The study for this is that the children and adults had a story read to them and they were asked 20 questions. 15 of these questions were misleading, and it showed that children were more likely to be influenced by the leading questions than adults. Language abilities. More complex the question, the more inaccurate the answer. This is where they found that a more complex question, the child was more likely to give an inaccurate answer, probably because they couldn't understand it or comprehend it. Therefore, it was found that you should phrase questions more child-friendly and not test them on skills that they do not have at the developmental level. So that just means talk at the language of their age level. So that's it for children. Elderly, they were shown a silent film clip, and it was found that the elderly were more influenced by incorrect information. This is a study of young adults averaging 35 years and elderly averaging 70 years, showing a silent film clip of a kidnapping. 10 minutes later, they were given 1 of 2 questions of a written summary on the crime, if that makes sense. One was accurate, while the other contained inaccurate information. Later on, all the participants were tested for their memory of the event. It was found that the elderly participants were much more likely to be influenced by the incorrect information and to include some of the incorrect material from the written account in their own recall of the film, which shows that they are more influenced by incorrect information, which is always good. And the last little bit is own age bias. This is where faces, you're more likely to remember the faces of your own age group. The study for this is, there were 3 age groups, 18 to 25, 35 to 45, 55 to 78, who were shown 24 photographs representing 3 different age groups, and they had the rate for attractiveness. After a short little activity, they were presented with 48 photographs. 24 had been seen previously and 24 acted as distractors. They then had to recognise... I don't bloody know.
Had to recognise the people that they'd seen in the first set of photos.
Yes. The young and middle-aged participants were significantly more accurate than the older participants, but the most interesting finding is that all age groups were more accurate at identifying photographs from their own age group, which is just a long way of saying what we said, that they remember faces from their own age group more. This is consistent with the own race bias, where you're better able to identify faces from your own ethnic group, because maybe we're more in contact with those members, we have better memory for them. And so, yeah, so maybe we're better at remembering faces of people our age and our ethnic group, which is always good. So, the evaluation of eyewitness testimony. Oh, God, you wouldn't believe how long this is going on. It makes a valuable contribution because the Devlin report concluded that unless the circumstances were highly unusual, eyewitness testimony should not result in a conviction. Because of all these problems we've just said, it can be biased, really. And so there have been implications as well. So you don't use misleading questions, make sure you don't use that. And the cognitive interview also, you could say, is a thing, which we'll come on to in a minute. However, it's been criticised for lacking ecological validity and being too artificial. There are two little examples of that. But we're just going to focus on the Canadian gun shop robbery, where what happened? There was a shooting. There was a rob of a gun shop, and the owner was shot. He returned fire, killing the robber.
Yeah.
It was in broad daylight in front of loads of witnesses. And months after the event, the witnesses were tracked down and they were able to recall the incident in great detail. There was a high level of agreement between the accounts showing that it was accurate. And they did not alter in response to leading questions, which just says everything Loftus has done is rubbish, which is never good. So it doubts Loftus's conclusions. And the last bit is lacking serious consequences.
Bank robbery study.
Yes, the bank robbery study is where participants were shown a video of a bank robbery and they were asked to identify the robber. Half were told that the robbery was real and their responses would influence the trial. The other half assumed it was a simulation. The identification was more accurate in the first group, suggesting that the consequences are important. The last little thing here is the cognitive interview. All you have to do, this is where you sit down and you have an interview and stuff. There isn't any set questions, there isn't a time limit. You can have open questions. The interviewer remains silent and doesn't interrupt the witness. And elaboration is only sought when the recall seems to have ended. The really important 4 things that you need to know is to reinstate the context.
Change the sequence of events.
Change the perspective.
And report everything.
Yes. Quickly elaborating, reinstate the context. The witness needs to be returned in their mind to the situation, original mood, environment. So they have to think back and it will increase their recall if they have cues. Change the sequence in different orders, reverse the order of events. This way important details are not missed out and it might fill in any gaps. Change the perspective. They must report what they know, but another perspective might put in some more information. And report everything, even if it seems irrelevant, because you might edit something out and it might, if you say it, create cues for further things. The evaluation is that it's successful with little training. 35% more correct details have been obtained through cognitive interviews, even with little training, with no increase in the number of errors. It requires more time than usual, though. Deliberate strategies aim to limit an eyewitness's reports to the minimum amount of information I've put in, which isn't good because you want them to keep talking so you get all the information. Information fast is often important to catch the criminal. So you might want to do it fast, but you can't. The skills of the interviewer have been shown to be important. Inexperienced have been found to lead the witness. The wording of the question might be significant. Again, you can use the and a broken headlight study and the crash bumped one. And the context improves recall. Recall is improved rather than recognition, if that makes sense, which means that the interview does not help with the recognition of the culprit, it just helps them talk more. So it might not actually help identify who'd done it, it just might help understand the event, which is a bit of a rubbish point, but there we are, it's written there, so I might as well say it. And it's been found to be most effective straight after the event, and it decays from then on. Whew, thank you for listening.
Yes,
Sarah,
very long video. Yes, thank you for listening. That was Will and me a little bit. And our next video will be memory improvement, so please listen in.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.